mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Patrons, welcome back. It's time for another Mike's Musings, and I have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shows that I'm going to briefly talk about. Shows that I haven't covered on the channel. Well, one of them I have, a couple of them I partially covered on the channel, but I figured this would be a good time to talk about them in a little bit more detail, just kind of give my thoughts on them. All of these shows, well, no, actually, not even close to all of them. I say all of them are complete. No, they're not. Half of them are. But, the ones that are complete, I have watched all of the episodes. The ones that are not complete, I won't finish. So, well, no, that's not true. One of these I will, but I don't know. I just figured this would be a good time for me to get in front of you guys and talk about some of these shows that have recently wrapped up, and give my thoughts on those, and then also some of these shows that haven't recently wrapped up, but they've wrapped up for your boy. So, I want to start with Tokyo Vice, because Tokyo Vice I covered on the channel up to a certain point. It's the same thing that I did with season 1, but the problem is that Tokyo Vice is a fairly dense show. It requires, I pay a lot of attention to it. I gotta take, a little bit more meticulous notes than I would otherwise. The process of converting my notes into what I'm going to talk about in the video takes a little bit longer, and it's one of those things where Tokyo Vice requires a lot of me for very, very little views. And I just can't, especially at the time, and this happened with season 1 as well. It hit at a time when a whole bunch of other shit was going on, and it's kind of like, okay, I can't take this much time to dedicate toward Tokyo Vice for fucking 12 fucking people to watch it. And it's not 12, but it's not much more than that either. And I can't justify it. So I don't want, and I said this at the time that I stopped covering it, I don't want anybody to think that me stopping covering it was a indictment on the show itself. Far from it. Tokyo Vice is one of the top shows of the year so far. I mean, we're only a third of the way through the year. So there's a whole lot of year left. Side note, it's like people commenting on my Shogun finale like, how is this not going to be in your top 5 at the end of the year? Because it's fucking April. That's why. I'm not saying it won't be, but there's a couple things that I already like more than I like Shogun. And it's not to say that they're better than Shogun. Just a couple things that I liked more than Shogun. And there's 8 months of the fucking year left. The Bear Season 3 could come out this year. Severance Season 2 could come out this year. All of those things, especially the Bear Season 3 is going to be number 1. Come on. But there's just too much of the year left for me to be like, Shogun is absolutely top 5. It's probably top 5, but like I said, there's a lot of year left for 5 things to come out that I like more, and the number's not 5, it's lower. So, what point was I making? Oh yeah, Tokyo Vice. Tokyo Vice is another one that's it's in there right now, as is Shogun. I don't know if it will stay, but both of those shows were very, very good. And I don't want, like I said, I don't want anybody to think that me stopping covering it is an indictment on the show. It's not. It's Tokyo Vice. I really like Tokyo Vice, not just I enjoy watching it, but it's just something that I really enjoy the characters. I really enjoy this world. I enjoyed it. I wasn't one of them people who's sitting there season 1 was blah, 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 but season 1 was good too. It wasn't like it was, people gotta speak at such fucking extremes all of the fucking time. Season 1 wasn't any good, but season 2, you don't have to pull down season 1 to elevate season 2. You don't have to do that. Season 2 is what it is. Season 1 was good as well. Again, sidebar, but people and this intense yearning to over-exaggerate everything and to live on these extremes, fringe extremes at that, is wild. But season 2 did improve on season 1. I thought the ending of it was interesting in that it felt like a series finale, like they're not planning on doing anymore. Whereas I feel like the show is maybe not necessarily popular enough, but well respected enough that I could still see them making a 3rd season. But it kind of feels to me like nobody watches the show. And if that's the case, I doubt we'll get a 3rd one. But For those who don't know, Tokyo Vice is about Ansel Elgort plays a white guy from Missouri who goes to Japan and he works for a newspaper. And he goes there to be a journalist in Japan and work for this newspaper. And he ends up entangled with the Yakuza. And there's also kind of like a B plot that the show could probably stand to get more attention to, actually. That's about like his relationship with his family back home, his relationship with his dad, his relationship with his sister. His sister's going through like depression or something like that. And like if they had spent more time on that this season, it would have made this show really hard to knock out of a #1 spot. Like I feel like they should have given that a little bit more time. But as it stands, the stuff with the newspaper is really good. Ansel Elgort, if you're not a fan of him, that's fine. He's the lead. He's in the show a lot. But for some reason, like, I'm not a big fan of his either, but he doesn't affect my enjoyment of the show because the best and most important characters are, like, it's not him. Like, he's important in the sense, like, he's the lead, but, like, the couple of the Yakuza members they're the ones that carry the show, not him. I don't know. There's so many good characters on the show. Both seasons had interesting storylines. Season 2 in particular started off looking like it was going to be something simple and became something much more than what it started out as. It's just a really enjoyable show. I've really highly recommend it. It's just a straightforward kind of like drama / thriller. That, I mean, if you can deal with the subtitles, it's a really enjoyable, easy watch. Yeah, I really enjoy that show. Strong likelihood it'll end up in the top 5. Next one I want to talk about is Manhunt. This is a show on Apple TV Plus. If you don't know about it already, it follows the moments after Abraham Lincoln's assassination. That happens at the very beginning of the show, and then the 8 episodes, I believe it's an 8-episode series. The rest of that follows the quest to catch John Wilkes Booth. And on its face, this sounded right up my alley. It stars the guy who played Kraz on Masters of the Air, which was the only thing I liked about Masters of the Air was Kraz. It stars him, the guy that plays Stanton, who is the Secretary of War that is in charge of hunting down Booth, is played by I'm blanking on his name, but he plays Edmure Tully on Game of Thrones. He's the only guy that really brings something serious to this. But like, before I even get into that, the cast, the subject matter, real historical events, all of this is right up my alley. I'm guaranteed to fuck with this show. And the show didn't take its subject matter as seriously as I do. Like, it felt very... I'm not going to say... No, I take that back. I was going to say it felt kind of lighthearted. That's not true. It didn't feel lighthearted. But, like, I'm going to leave it with it didn't take itself seriously enough. It should have taken itself a bit more seriously. Like, you got Patton Oswalt in this thing. He's difficult to take seriously. The way the actor who plays John Wilkes Booth plays the character is... He wasn't given a lot to work with. It's like his script said, every few minutes say something racist. And he's like, all right, I can do that. He like... I don't know. It takes this weird kind of humoristic tone with him a lot. It's like sometimes he's like really racist and terrible. And then other times he says things that are like incredibly funny. So much so that you know that it wasn't meant to be that funny. It's just like the tone at times, it was a little bit too lighthearted. It just felt like the actor who plays Stanton, the guy that I said played Edmure Tully on Game of Thrones, he took it seriously. It feels like everyone else kind of looked at it like, we could take kind of a like... Lighthearted is not a good word, but like we don't need to take this as seriously as I would have liked them to take it. The guy who plays Lincoln is not good. Like, it's not a good Lincoln. And I've said this on Facebook, you can't expect Daniel Day-Lewis all the time, but like, you got to do better than this guy. He didn't look like Lincoln. His face was too wide. He had a weird kind of like jokey kind of tone to him. Like his tone of voice it didn't sound Lincoln-y enough. And again, this is coming from somebody who doesn't know what Lincoln sounded like, but like none of us do. But I don't know. He sounded a little bit too almost like comical, like he was meant to be like a caricature of Lincoln. And I don't know. The Lincoln didn't work for me. Caricature's too harsh. But Lincoln didn't work for me. It was something that I just wish they had taken it a little bit more seriously. It's a very, they said this is kind of like the rise of like dad TV. And it kind of is. Like, if you want something you can just kind of sit back and watch it. It's a historical, it's not a documentary, but it's like, it's a historical drama based on real events that like dads like myself are into and interested in. But as someone who takes the art of television and film seriously, it didn't really work for me in that respect. But if you're like a father who just like, yeah, I would have watched some shit about the motherfucker that killed Lincoln, it's a fairly easy watch. It's not a bad show by any means. It was just really disappointing for me because I was expecting something a lot more serious, and it felt like it didn't take itself seriously enough, and that kind of hampered my enjoyment. I just wish it was better. X-Men 97. Here's the first of two controversial opinions I'm going to have here. I don't think my opinion on Tokyo Vice being great or my opinion on Manhunt being a disappointment, I don't think either of those things are controversial. The next two things I'm going to talk about, at least based on my timeline, are controversial. X-Men 97. So X-Men 97 is I don't know what you even call it. It's not like it feels like a continuation of the original X-Men animated series that aired in the 90s, hence the name 97. It's drawn in the same animation style, similar theme music, most of the same characters. There's some new ones on here. But it's really meant to tap into the yearning for nostalgia that people my age have right now. People who look at that, the X-Men animated series is one of the best comic-based cartoons back in the day, which I would include myself as one of those people. The original X-Men animated series is outstanding. At least to childhood / young teenager, preteen Michael, it was great. This show, I don't understand I do understand the incredible, just like, this shit is mind-blowingly great. It is not anywhere near mind-blowingly great. It is exactly the same as the show that I watched as a kid. And I mean that insultingly. This show is for children. Like, this is a child's show. This is a cartoon. Like, yes, it tackles adult subject matter, just like the original show did as well. But like, I mean, the dialogue in this is, it's bad, man. Like, a lot of these episodes are not interesting. It's very much like, they're not, they didn't make this a show that is meant to satisfy my yearning for nostalgia, but also be something that adult male me would enjoy. They didn't worry about that second part. They only wanted to tap into the nostalgia piece. This shit is not for adults, man. Like, it's just not. And you could sit there and be like, well, they had this one thing where they talked about racism. No. The X-Men historically have been that. So we can't cite that here as, no, it's actually, no, we can't cite that. That's always been present within the X-Men from the inception of the comic to the animated series to right now. It's always been a show or comic that has dealt with racism, prejudice, whatever. Talking about the show, this X-Men 97, this fucking cartoon, it is a fucking cartoon, man. Again, it doesn't do any... I feel like there's nothing here for adults, man. Like, I'm watching this shit like, man, this is boring. This is not entertaining. Yes, it reminds me of the show that I watched as a kid, but this, like, I don't see any adult enjoying this. And I feel like when I said earlier about people talking about living in these extremes, people... like, they rush to be the first person to say something incredibly hyperbolic about whatever. It's either the worst thing ever created or it's the best thing ever created, and they have to be the first person to say it. And then after that, everyone just falls in line because everyone's too pussy to say how they really feel, and they just fall in line with everyone else because they're like, well, everyone else is saying this, so that must be the accurate opinion. So yes, I do understand why everyone is saying this show is great. But this show is for children, dog. Like I said, I watched 3 episodes of it. I didn't watch the first one. It was like, oh, this isn't good. I watched the first one. I was like, that wasn't any good. And then I watched 2 more, and all 3 times, I was like, none of those episodes were any good. If you tell me, I've heard all kinds of great things about episode 5. I don't fucking care. The show is clearly for children. If episode 5 has something, it seems like it has a big deal death, big fucking whoop. It's still a show for children. Like I'm just not doing it. So, I didn't like it. Obviously, after the first 3 episodes, I stopped watching it. I have no intention of going back. I stopped after episode 2 and had no intention of going back. Everyone was like, episode 5 is so good. I'm like, okay, well, it's only 5. I'll work my way up to 5 and then see how it goes. And then I watched 3 and I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I don't need to watch this shit. This show is not even... And then somebody tells me like there's like this weird Jubilee standalone episode that doesn't have anything. I'm like, no, I'm not even doing this, dog. So... that's another thing. Like, I'm at a point now where there's so much stuff. I try to watch it all. I have to gauge what I want to cover versus what I don't want to cover just for, like, my own personal feelings. Like, do I like this show? Do I want to cover this show? But then on top of that, look at the show like Tokyo Vice, I got to take into consideration how much time am I spending on it versus how much reward. And it makes it so that I'm a lot less forgiving, and I don't give shows as much time as I used to. 3 episodes is plenty of fucking time, but I'm not going to sit here and force myself to watch something that I'm not into. Like, I need to be into it to watch it. Like, I'm not going to be just checking in like, well, let me just see, I did that with Manhunt, but it was only because the end of Manhunt happened at a time when things started to die down, and I'm like, well, now I have the opportunity to do it. Like, it's not a thing where I'm like, well, let me make sure I watch Manhunt. Like, no, it wasn't. And I'm reserving my free time for that. Stuff where I'm like, I can't wait to watch this. Stuff like Ripley, stuff like Sugar, stuff like Fallout. Things where I'm like, I want to watch these things. I'm not going to waste time forcing myself to watch a cartoon because a whole bunch of people who are too cowardly to say it's a cartoon for children say that it's great. I'm not gonna do it. So no X-Men 97 for me. Granted, you guys, again, my opinion comes with the permanent asterisk of this is how I feel about it. You might like it, but I try to give you guys reasons, and without going into a ton of details. Like I said, I don't even take notes anyway for these shows or for these videos. To me, it felt like it was for kids. There was nothing redeeming about it at all. Like, I can't imagine why an adult would want to spend 30 minutes with this per week. I can't. Like, I go watch the original fucking show because it's the same fucking thing. Like, I just go watch the original show. Moving on. Boy. This next one, I have seen some people agree that X-Men 97 ain't that great. I ain't seen nobody agree with what I'm about to say next. But I didn't particularly like 3 Body Problem. I know. Everybody's like, oh, this is the shit. I didn't like 3 Body Problem. I watched the whole thing. I was not into it at any point. The first 4 episodes or so out of, I want to say, what was it, 7 or 9? I think it was 9. The first 4 episodes or so, which is where everyone liked it the most, was when I liked it the least. I didn't like the stuff that okay, so for starters, well, I don't want to totally give away the show's premise because learning the premise is part of the experience. I'm not doing spoilers or no spoilers on here, but I do kind of want to try to keep it as non-spoilery as possible just in case people are interested in checking it out. But it's a sci-fi show. Oh, fuck. You really can't explain this without without giving the premise away. I'm just going to talk about it as if you've seen it. So, the first 4 episodes or so, it juggles these 2 kind of storylines with like contact with aliens and characters going into like this overly realistic video game or like it's like a headset, not like a VR, but it's like overly not just VR. Like I feel like I'm here. Like no, you're actually somewhere, but you feel like you're actually somewhere, but you just got this headset on. And the first 4 episodes kind of balanced between the game and the real life storyline. And what I didn't like about that was that the game didn't make any fucking sense and it wasn't interesting. And that's what everybody else I feel like was intrigued by the fact that it didn't really make sense. That irritated me because I didn't even see a potential tie-in with the main storyline. It does eventually tie in with the main storyline, but again, we're talking like 4 or 5 episodes in at this point. So like by that point, I was already like, oh my God, can y'all please not put that fucking headset on? I don't want to go on the fucking game again. Because it's just like, I don't know, it like nothing that happened in it really made sense. And then they would fail at the mission of, so like each level in this game had this mission of like protecting or preserving the civilization. And the people who were going into the game constantly kept letting the civilization die, or kept allowing the civilization, not even allowing, they failed to prevent the end of the civilization multiple times. And then this woman who's in charge of the game would just float in and be like, the civilization died, but you did figure out this one other thing, so you advanced to the next level. And it was like, and again, in retrospect, all of that makes sense. But for 4 episodes, like, it was kind of just like, dog, I don't get this, and I don't like this. I don't see how it ties in, and it's going on too long with no connection to the main storyline for me to enjoy. Then they do connect it to the main storyline, and for me, that was when the show got better because it was more focused. It was like, okay, well, now we understand what the issue is, we understand what the mission is, and now we can focus on working on that. So the show got better to me at that point, whereas that's where worse for everyone else, but it's just that is what it is. That's kind of the inverse of how things normally work. Normally, I'd be way more into the weird shit, but this was like, it wasn't interesting. It was like weird and it was kind of dumb. I'm like, this doesn't like, it didn't seem like a game that would be fun to play, nor was it fun to watch. And I don't know. I'm not gonna keep going on about it, but the show had for a show with such serious subject matter, it also had more humor than I would have liked, and it wasn't funny. So I meant that how I said it. It had a lot of humor, and it also wasn't funny. And to me, and this is gonna sound mean, and I don't mean it. I don't mean for it to sound as cruel as it sounds, because I don't mean it as the insult that it's going to sound like it's going to be, or the insult that it's going to sound like. But like, this show felt like an HBO or Apple concept in CW packaging. And I know that sounds cruel, and I'm not trying to shit on it, even though it sounds like I do. I don't hold CW content in that ill of a regard for it to be meant as much of an insult as it probably sounds like, because everyone else holds CW in much more less of a regard than I do. But the point stands that it felt like a high concept that Apple or HBO would air, but with network TV dialogue, production quality. I don't know. It's been kind of a long time since I watched it, but it just didn't work for me. I constantly found myself kind of like rolling my eyes at the dialogue or getting bored with things. Like, this feels like it's not going anywhere. It had a couple moments that I thought were really, really good, and then it didn't really capitalize on that. Like, I don't remember when, but like, my favorite moment of the series was, I think, around the end of episode 3 or 4. And then I think like the whole next episode, they didn't even talk about that thing. Or it's like, or you get significantly far to the episode before. I think it was the whole next episode, though. They didn't even fucking, it was as if like that thing never happened in the whole next episode. That bothered me. It was just, I don't know, man. It was a show that I feel it would have been better had it been done by or for HBO or Apple. I don't know. That sounds dumb, though. Like, the network or streamer that it's on shouldn't impact the quality of it. Like, you should be like, Mr. Robot was on USA. It shouldn't matter. But this really did feel like something that would have been, like, if for whatever reason, maybe Apple would have put better writers on it, would have put better directors on it, would have casted it there. I don't know. Maybe Apple or HBO would have done those things differently, and that would have made it better. Because I know it's based off of a book, but I'm surprised that Benioff and Weiss were not able to do something better with established IP, since they've already proven themselves to be good at that. I don't know. It wasn't my thing. That's all I can say. I really enjoy it. The next thing I'm going to talk about, something else I didn't like, Franklin. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Similar to Manhunt, it was something that I really look forward to. It stars Michael Davis as Benjamin Franklin. It takes place... Okay, this is the perfect example of what's wrong with this. One of the things that's wrong with this show. It takes place around the time of the Revolutionary War, but Franklin is exclusively in France. Like, I would have preferred, if you put Franklin and this time period together, that it be something that's tied more directly to the Revolutionary War here, rather than being in France, because we did attempt to recruit France to help against the British in the Revolutionary War, but like, it's my understanding that he's in France for this whole thing, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't really have interest in watching Benjamin Franklin recruit France. Like, for an episode, sure, not for 8 of them. Like, I don't know. And I'm watching it, and it's like conversation after conversation, and nothing interesting is happening. And I'm watching this first episode. I'm like, this is so boring. And this was uninteresting to someone who cares about the main character, who cares about the subject matter, who cares about the time period. And it's just like, man, y'all chose to put, like, I don't know, man. For someone like me who entered into this with a mindset of I'm going to like this, for them to bore the fuck out of me I mean, I can't imagine anyone else feeling like this show is any good, because I walked into it expecting it to be good, and they were like, no, this is not good, it's boring. And I'm like, oh man, that sucks. But I'm like, maybe it was just the first episode, let me watch another one. And I got like halfway through the second episode, I'm like, you know what, no. The same thing with what was the other thing I said that I cut? Oh, X-Men 97. Like, say that I'm not gonna force myself to watch this. Like if you can't avoid being boring as fuck for an episode and a half, then I'm not gonna dedicate any more time to it. So, that's my thoughts on Franklin. I watched an episode and a half. I was bored to death. Probably more. Like, I can't even tell you the last time I watched something that boring. Like, that's how boring that show was. And then lastly, I want to talk about the Jerrod Carmichael reality show. I did a video for the first episode, which I was really impressed by. I'm not necessarily going to say my opinion on the show has changed. It's just I don't really know what he's going for. I felt like he was going for something deep and introspective, and now it kind of feels like he's fucking with us a lot. He's doing a lot of trolling. He's showing us that he's basically an asshole. Like, and it feels very voyeuristic. And not so much, like, I thought it was gonna be something where it's like he's gonna try to like really open up, and there are those moments, don't get me wrong, but it feels very much like what I thought that he was trying to make fun of initially. I think the most recent one is the third one, maybe the fourth one, and it had some really great scenes with his dad that dealt with Jerrod recently having come out of the closet and how that affected his family. It has some really great scenes there. That was an episode where I'm just like, okay, this is you know, this is the show that I was expecting to watch or that I would enjoy. It's just not the show that I think I'm gonna get for however many episodes of the show's run. There's a lot of times where I'm just like, no, he's just a fucking asshole, this guy. Like, I can't. It's not like he's someone who stumbles into doing the wrong thing. He's someone who knows what the right thing is and the wrong thing is, and will consciously go, I don't want to do the right thing because the wrong thing is more convenient for me. Like someone who makes a conscious decision to hurt people. No. Like, I can't, like, there's a lot of people who say, like, I don't like these characters when they're watching the show, which is something that I've always questioned. I'm like, why do you need to like a character? You don't have to like them to find them compelling to watch. Like Joffrey from Game of Thrones, best example. Character, easy to hate. Incredibly easy to hate. And one of the best characters that's ever been on television. It's so that's like the balance, right? Like, you hate the character, but you love the character. Like, you hate him because for the reasons that for who they are within the context of the show, but you love the character for what they bring to the show. He is someone who it feels like he's just somebody that you just don't like. I not like, oh, I love what he brings to the show. Like, no, he's just a piece of shit, man, this guy. And I don't know. I didn't really like that. Like I said, it felt like he knew what he could do to not hurt people, and he instead made the decision to hurt people. Like, I know this is going to hurt somebody, but it's more convenient for me, so I'm going to do it anyway. Fuck him, dog. Like, I don't like people like that. And he's been given that energy a lot. And if this ends up being a show where it focuses on him becoming a better person and him maturing and whatnot, I could totally get into it. But right now it feels very voyeuristic. Like, let me just show you me being a piece of shit. That's what the show feels like at times. It didn't feel like episode 1 I thought was great. This most recent one, I think it was 3 or 4, felt great, whichever one's with his dad. The middle two, fun to watch, but again, just kind of like, man, what an asshole this guy is. So I'm not as strong on that show as I was when I watched the first episode. I think he might have kind of got one over on me in the first episode a little bit by presenting a reality that wasn't fully the reality, but trying to pretend like it was the reality. And again, I don't necessarily even have a problem with that. It's just the show that I thought I was going to get after watching the first one was the show where it was like real moments that show hurt, that show growth, that show maturity, whatever. Whereas, like I said, right now, after now watching 3 or 4 episodes, it feels like he just kind of wants to, like, be controversial, be relevant, and he's exploiting people to do this willingly and knowingly. And then sometimes I feel like I get something heartfelt, something worthwhile, but I don't think that happens enough. And I think it's countered by the opposite of that. If you're not going to give me that all the time, that's fine. That's a wild expectation to have. But still give me something maybe that's a step down from that consistently, as opposed to like the polar opposite where I'm just like, yo, fuck him, man. Like I don't want to be like, yo, this is a like, if I feel like fuck him in one moment, I want to later be like, he learned from that, or he grew from that, or that was a great moment. Not just like, fuck him and that's it. So now it's become something that I just kind of watch on Friday nights after Bill Maher, and just gonna be like, let me see what the fuck he's gonna put on the television this week. Like, is it gonna be something? Am I gonna see him sucking toes again, or am I gonna see him doing something that's moving or profound? But it's not something that I'm like must see TV like I expected after the first episode. So that's all I got. I will see you guys, I don't know when, for an 11th one. I will say that the other 2 shows that I considered covering on the next Mike Musing, I'm going to make into full videos. That being for Ripley on Netflix and Fallout on Prime. So you can look for those. I will be going to the NFL draft here in Detroit tomorrow, Thursday. So not tomorrow, Thursday, but Friday the 26th feels like a day for me to get one of those 2 out. So look for full videos on Fallout and Ripley pretty soon. And that's all I got. Let me know what you thought in the comments, or hit the Facebook page or the Discord or whatever. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of, not a lot, because I've literally 1 or 2 people is going to watch this video. But there would be, if a normal amount of people watch this, there'd be probably a lot of pushback on my 3-body problem distaste. But yeah, it is what it is. But let me know what you thought in the comments, or hit me on the Discord or the Facebook or whatever. And I'll see you guys next time for Mike Musing 11. Till then, peace.